Dear Diva Harja, hello friends and welcome to Ireland, or my small corner of Ireland, and welcome to YouTube, my small corner of YouTube. My name is John Mooney, and I've been collecting stamps for about 58 years. I do collect other things, but not nearly to the same extent. This, I hope, will be the first of a series of videos about collecting stamps, postcards, coins, whatever. But in this first video, I want to talk about the nature of collecting itself. What makes someone like me do what I do? Now, I think the first thing I have to say is that any form of collecting is a leisure activity. And in this very unfair and unequal world, there are literally millions of people who do not have the luxury of leisure. Indeed, up until about 1900, I think very few ordinary people in North America or Western Europe would have understood leisure. I think modern leisure really begins after 1945, when young people particularly had money in their pockets to buy things beyond the absolute basics of life. They could buy clothes, they could buy records, whatever. And they had the money and the time to do it. And I think collecting is, in a way, part of that syndrome. I also think that collectors have a collecting gene in our DNA. We may be collectors of stamps, postcards, coins, whatever, but when we go to a collector's fair or a flea market or whatever, we will be interested in any form of collecting, say bubblegum cards, party, political, campaign buttons, cigarette packets, whatever. We understand the nature of collecting, and we are kindred spirits with people who collect anything. Now, more so, I think we understand the nostalgia. There's a nostalgia quotient in collecting, and there's also a need, maybe even an obsession, to build some kind of archive. Now, I think that's actually quite a big question. Why do we need to do that, or why do some of us need to do that? Now, I inherited that collecting gene from my late father. Back in the 1930s, like many people of his generation, he collected cigarette cards. These were inserts in cigarette packets, collectible, maybe 25, maybe 50, whatever, on usually themes like football, cricket, famous movie stars, whatever. And that was something that just flourished really in Britain and Ireland at least, between the two world wars. Now, about 7 years ago, I bought this set of 50 cigarette cards. They are probably typical of the ones that my father would have collected, and really I got them as a kind of a tip of the hat, a tribute to him in some way, because like I say, I did inherit that collecting gene from him. Now, I was born in 1952, but certainly by the end of the 1950s, I was aware of what we call chewing gum cards on this side of the Atlantic, and they're known as bubblegum cards on the other side of the Atlantic. These were cards in a wrapper with horrible tasting pink chewing gum. I used to give the chewing gum away in exchange for a card. Usually the theme was football. They're the first that I remember, but the first that I really collected was a set of 80 cards, flags of the world, and interestingly there was only 80 of them. Now remember, this was about 1959, and a lot of countries became independent in the 1960s and later. I mean, today, 2020, there are 193 members of the United Nations. There are also 5 other countries: Kosovo, Northern Cyprus, Palestine, Vatican and Taiwan, which are de facto countries, although not actually members of the UN. But there's also something more interesting about those cards. Only 5 of the 80 were actually on the continent of Africa. And countries change. Countries cease to exist. Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, South Vietnam. And countries change their names. Ceylon. Countries change their flags. Canada. Then, of course, the red ensign. And nowadays, of course, the maple leaf flag. Now, the cards themselves do have some stereotypical images on the front of the card, but on the back of the card they do have some really useful information, especially when you're about 8 years old. Capital cities, currency, language spoken, population. Now it's a curious thing, but back then this was regarded as general knowledge, and general knowledge was regarded in itself as a good thing. And nowadays, 2020, we call it trivia, and we tend to dismiss stamp collectors, postcard collectors, whatever, as nerds and geeks. But really, those 1959, 1960 cards, they set me off on a lifetime of collecting, for good or bad, and having a curiosity about the world. And I think that's a good thing. Now, one last thing, those 80 cards, I probably never had more than 75 of them. Even after trading cards in the school playground, it was impossible to put together all 80. And 3 years ago on eBay, I bought this. It's an album with those 80 cards. And I feel so pleased. I feel so pleased that it has taken me 50 years, more than 50 years, to actually get those and put them together. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and maybe I'll do it again.